Hare Krishna. So today we're continuing our summer study of Bhagavad-gita with chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. And again, we see that this chapter is focused around the relationship between the jiva and the material world, and particularly also with Krishna. So all three of them, and how they're interacting in this material world. And this chapter begins with a bit of a mystery. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." So, has its roots upward and its branches down. Continuing text 2, the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. There's a nice picture of this. There was in the original Bhagavad-gita. Is it still there in your Gita? So the banyan tree is situated on a bank of water, labeled desire. And of course, where would we find a tree with its branches downward and its roots up? Is a tree on the bank of a body of water. The body of water is called desire, which nourishes the tree. And those roots and branches are the activities of the Vedas. The twigs are the objects of the senses. And the roots are going down, bound to the fruitive actions of human society. So, Daniela, you've seen a banyan tree someplace? No? Okay. There's one banyan tree in India reported to be 2 square miles. They spread out very far, and their branches go out, and branches come down from their branches, and then they root into the ground. In this way, they continue to extend for a very far way. And so this material world is compared to such a banyan tree, because if you get inside that big tree like that, you're lost. Where are you? Right? And so this is the situation of the living beings in this material world. They're so entangled with so many desires over many lifetimes that it's impossible to find their way out. They're captured by both desires and by karma. So, continuing, the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends or where it begins, what I was just saying. Or where its foundation is. It's just like, it's everywhere. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So that's very significant. A very strong tree. A tree based on what? Based on desire, based on karma. And so how to cut down that tree? With detachment, meaning we let go of those desires that are keeping us trapped in this world. And of course, the easiest and best way of doing that is by making progress in spiritual life, by which we become detached automatically. Detachment is a concomitant factor. You know that word, concomitant? It means it happens automatically without separate endeavor. As we make progress in spiritual life, the symptom of that is we lose our attachment for material life. Okay. So, with the weapon of detachment, Thereafter one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything is extended since time immemorial. So, detachment allows us to refocus our energy towards the Supreme Lord. As long as we are attached to material things, you can't put your attention really in more than one place at a time. So as long as we're attached here, we can't focus here on spiritual life. So, again, the living entity in the material world. How is he in the material world? How is he entangled in the material world? So there's this analogy explaining about this banyan tree and how the living entity is trapped here. And so then one must go there to that place from which one never returns. That's the spiritual world. And there surrender to the Supreme Lord. Those who are free from false prestige. So here's how you get there. Here's your ticket. Become free from false prestige. Meaning, I think I'm very important. Everybody should give me respect. Illusion. The illusion that I am the body, that I'm the enjoyer of this world. And false association means other materialistic people who are addicted to women and money, or sex and money, who understand the eternal, and are finished with material lust, who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress. So many times we've explained, Krishna is giving the symptoms of a person who is transcendently situated. This is another time. So he's saying this again and again. These are the persons who are transcendently situated and who, unbewildered by Maya, know how to surrender to the Supreme Person to attain that eternal kingdom. So this is great science. This is called the spiritual science. And this science is completely presented in Bhagavad-gita, so that one who studies Bhagavad-gita can understand how the science is working and how to navigate this material world so that one can cross over the ocean of material suffering, the ocean of nescience. Do you know that analogy? There's this big ocean, and you're up on a hill, and you see down at the shore of that ocean there's a boat. It's a great ocean. And there's a boat, small boat with oars. And you have to cross over that ocean of Maya, of illusion, with this little boat, right? Yeah. And so most people, they look down at that and they go, no, that's impossible. They don't even try. But for the sadhaka, who is serious about making pursuit in spiritual life, making progress in spiritual life, despite the fact that it may not be successful in this life, one becomes determined that somehow or other, regardless of how long it takes, I'm going to go there. Mm-hmm. And so as he approaches that boat with determination, that ocean shrinks and gets smaller and smaller, so that by the time he gets there, that ocean is no bigger than the size of the footprint of a calf. And so he easily steps over that ocean and leaves the boat on the other side for those who come after him. So, this is a great analogy that explains how, by our determination, we can do what seems to be impossible.
Also in the Bible is like that is one story. Uh-huh. You make the one step to the God, and God make the 100-mile step front of you.
That's in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, Prabhupada gives that example too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I don't know that from the Bible. Okay, yeah. Sure, that's exactly the point. That's the shrinking of the ocean, right? Okay. So, the determined sadhaka is going toward that spiritual world with determination and to surrender to the Supreme Lord. And Krishna says about that place, that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, by fire or electricity. And those who reach it never return to this material world. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is an important point. This point was made way back in, what is it, chapter 4? Chapter 7. Earlier in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna is saying that in chapter 2, my eternal parts. We are eternally separated from Krishna. We are individual spiritual beings. So Krishna says, my eternal fragmental parts. This gives something of the idea that God is fragmented into all the innumerable living entities, and all of them together they combine and they are God. This is not correct. No. God is individual spiritual being, and we are part of Him. Prabhupada gives the expression, an Old English expression, part and parcel. Is that translated in your Bhagavad-gita? You think in some way, part and parcel? Do you know that expression?
I heard from devotees.
Yeah, but I mean, is there some way of saying that in your translation?
Part and parcel is like...
The example is given. The finger is part and parcel of the hand. This is Old English expression, so in modern usage, it's a little confusing. But that means, it's part. And Prabhupada says, for example, the finger, that is a finger. But you take that same finger and you detach it from a hand. Although it looks like a finger, it has none of the functions of a finger. So it's not really a finger. It's a used-to-be finger or something like that. So part and parcel. It's part of and a parcel. So all the living beings are connected with Krishna. We are aspects of Krishna that are unique. Each one of us are one unique aspect of Krishna that's completely different from all the other millions, unlimited numbers of beings. So this is the variety of Krishna. Krishna manifests these different parts of himself as individual beings.
We are like a Krishna, but extremely
Small.
small.
It's called Anu. That word, yeah. Anu means atomic. So Krishna is unlimited and we are limited. So the way I say it, he is God with a big G and we are God with a little g. No. Yes or no? And in our philosophy, this is called Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva. This means simultaneously one and different from God. So we're like in terms of personality and all the characteristics, personal characteristics, but different in quantity. Okay.
Like one drop of the sea is the same.
That's another example that Prabhupada gives. Very good. Struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So the mind is the master of the senses, and so it's considered one of the senses, and in many ways the mind is more demanding than the other parts than the other senses. More demanding. It's, the mind is very strong. You might like to see nice things or taste nice food, but the mind wants to do all of that and more.
I have a question. But here also said that intelligence above mind. How mind can be, because if he's under, how he can intelligent.
So this is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam that says that the mind and the intelligence are both subtle material energy. And they're so similar that one can only tell the difference between them by their function. That the function of the mind is to accept and reject on the basis of sense gratification. The function of the intelligence is to accept or reject or discriminate on the basis of one's long-term interest. So, Shreyas and Preyas. What's good, what I want now, what's good for me later. So, the intelligence is called the higher self, and the higher self is meant to give direction to the lower self. That is, with the intelligence, one controls the mind with the intelligence. Now, we don't separate in our consciousness, right? We just, so many thoughts are going on. Is it the intelligence mind? We don't think about that. It's just, it's a dialogue that gets played in our consciousness. But for a person who has some intelligence, they think about what they're doing and discriminate between what they should do and what they should not do. Persons who do not have such a discrimination oftentimes do things that get them in a lot of trouble. Drugs, this, that, so many unfortunate circumstances, and then they become addicted and captured. So the intelligence, like the mind, but different function. So that's why it's considered higher. Is that okay? Make sense? Or?
Yeah, for me it's confused, but they said intelligence is higher, and I can't understand why is. Oh, I can't understand. Okay, why is mind? If I'm stronger than you, you cannot beat me. Mm-hmm. How you can beat me if I'm stronger than you? You cannot beat me. And if intelligence is stronger than mine, how can mind?
Some people do not have developed intelligence, right? Either they're not taught morality by their parents, they're not given any religious or spiritual instruction, and so the intelligence is used only for material activity.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So, of course, there's many people in prison, and some people in America, they thought, oh, these poor people in prison, they are... Kaya, would you bring me some water, please? Yes. They're thinking, oh, let us help these poor people in prison. They just had a bad break in life. They're there because, things went wrong for them. So let's help them out. Let's give them education. So they taught them computer skills. And they're thinking when they get out of prison, they'll have some skill, they can go to work, and they can become a productive member of society. Well, when they got out of prison, what they did was use computers to do crime, right? Because they had criminal mentality, criminal intelligence, right? The intelligence was crooked. So although they had intelligence, right, they were using it in the wrong way. Thank you very much.
Okay, intelligence is above if we are...
if it's trained properly.
If we are fit for this.
If it's trained. Yeah.
What is trained?
Educated.
Okay.
When is our unconscious is full of the garbage, our intelligence that is unpure desire or attachment.
What you ask?
Okay, we call this dirt in the heart.
Okay, dirt on the heart. Yeah.
Unconscious is false ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Prabhupada doesn't use this kind of terms.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we-
she's using, because this is from her background,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, we all have this common understanding of spiritual truth from Prabhupada. So I'll try to connect you like that.
Thank you.
So the way we express that is dirty heart. We're attached to dirty things. Dirty things means that which keep us bound in this material world.
Attached with the results, with everything.
Yeah.
And then intelligent is zero.
Yeah, material intelligence can be there, but without intelligence means what? Real intelligence means spiritual intelligence. It's not referring to material intelligence here. Like university, so many people have educated, they have material knowledge, but they have no
That is
morality.
Yes.
You know, they have no, so they have no real knowledge. Okay, point made.
Super.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so, okay. The living entity in the material world carries a different conceptions of life from one body to the other as air carries aroma. So we've explained this before, that just like our daily activities are set into motion by the activities that we did in the previous day, so the next life, our activities continue from where our activities leave off in this life. The consciousness that we develop in this life, that's what we take with us. That's who we are. That's who we have become. And so what is that? That means when we leave the body, we leave in the subtle body. Mind, intelligence, and ego, sense of self. So we have that sense of self, which is what Krishna is referring to here. Different conceptions of life. So we take that with us into the next body. And there's some interesting examples of that I've seen. It's a little speculation, but one person I know that I've been very close to in the past, seeing him and observing him, I understood that in previous life he was some kind of royalty, had a very royal position. And so coming into this life, although he's not in royal family, he still has that mentality that everybody should serve me, right? I deserve some position, I'm special, like this. So, you know, it's a little bit speculation, but we see this kind of thing. Prabhupada said of Nehru, that Nehru, you know, Prime Minister Nehru from India,
Okay.
he said that in his next life he became a dog.
Yeah.
So, you know, dogs, what is their business? Barf, barf, barf. Stay away, right? This is mine. Go away. So, right? So you can, if that's the consciousness that you develop, you get a particular body that allows you to express that consciousness. So, human life does not mean that we must have human life in next life. We may become dog, ant, whatever, any other kind of animal. But what we take is that consciousness, and that consciousness can be expressed in many different fashions. I think of another one I think of like that is my sister. She has two cats, like yours. She has two cats. They stay inside the house all the time. Never go outside. And she lives in a very nice house. So I'm thinking about these cats. In the last life, they wanted to have a nice house, right, and be pampered and have a luxurious life, not have to do anything. This is okay. Cats, that's what they have. So, anyway. Oh, speculation, but it's fun.
I think that is not speculation. That is karma.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
For me, that is real.
Yeah. Number 9, the living entity, taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, grouped about the mind, and thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So again, the relationship of the living entity. How do we happen to be in a particular body that we have? We see different people with different kinds of bodies. Some are beautiful, some are strong, some are weak, some are ugly, some are intelligent. Like this. They're simply coming with the consciousness from last life, and they take that body with certain senses and so on, and enjoys sense objects according to that conception of life developed from previous life. We continue like this, life after life, and there can be gradual evolution, a gradual change. If, for example, somebody is very much overweight, sometimes you see these videos on YouTube, some very heavy, grossly obese person, and they decide they're going to stop being fat, and they exercise and exercise and exercise, and so you see their changing body, right? So they had a particular consciousness, but by determination, they've changed their way of thinking, their way of living, and so they develop a different type of body, and then next life they'll continue with that. So these things can change, generally not to a great degree, but for some people they do change quite a bit. The foolish cannot understand how this is going on. What sort of body one enjoys under the spells of the modes of material nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So, foolish people, they basically like animals. I watch the sheep outside my porch, outside my window sometimes. Not very bright animals. They are, grass, just grass, grass, grass. What else do they know? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, right? Like Prabhupada explains about animals. They have no other activity that they do. So a foolish person is like an animal. They can't understand how this world is working as a combination of matter and spirit. It's beyond them. They're not at that stage of spiritual evolution. We go through 8,400,000 species of life. You know this? That's okay. So gradually evolving up all the animal species coming to human life, and then in human life, hopefully developing our understanding of ourselves as spiritual beings, and then eventually leaving this material world once and for all. So the next sloka is very much like that. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and are not situated in self-realization cannot understand that even if they try. Not everybody can get it. I have one godbrother. He's thinking we're doing something wrong. We're not. But people get our books, but they don't read it and they don't understand it. We must have a better way of explaining things. And I try to point this out to them that everybody's not ready for this. Very few, in fact, can actually get it. So those are the Brahminical class of men that really understand. So about the Varnas, the ratio is given 1,000 people, there's 9 900 Sudras, 90 Vaishyas, 9 Kshatriyas, and 1 Brahmana. More or less like this. Sometimes the ratio is a little different. But in other words, the mass of people, they are not spiritually developed. They can't understand. But the Brahminical class, or what's called the Dvijas, actually, the Vaishya, Kshatriya, and Brahmana, they have developed intelligence and they are supposed to understand these things. But because of their situation in the modes, the Vaishya, more influenced by Rajagun, therefore his intelligence is affected by that. So he's not so concerned. He can understand it, but exactly how it's applied is difficult because he's captured by wanting to get results of activities, to produce something. And Kshatriya likewise, but the Brahmana, being situated in Sattva Gun, free from the demands of the senses or from material desires, focuses his intelligence on spiritual development, studies spiritual things, and then can understand things properly. Okay. So, just a few more. This is a rather short chapter, 20 verses. The splendor of the sun that dissipates the darkness of this world comes from me. The splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet by my energy. They stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So I graduated with a master's degree in engineering. And when I was reading Bhagavad-gita, I was thinking, well, let's make an experiment to prove to the scientists that Bhagavad-gita is actually bona fide by making an experiment with this moonshine. And I wrote to Prabhupada and I asked him that question. I said, let's make an experiment. We can prove to the scientists the validity of Bhagavad-gita by doing this experiment. We'll cover up some fruit trees so they don't get any moonshine, or some vegetables, they won't get any moonshine, and the others, and then we'll be able to compare. And Prabhupada replied, he said, our main aim is not to convince the rascal scientists of anything. He says, after all, they have free will, and if they are determined to remain atheistic, what can we do? Our main aim is to convince the innocent people that life comes from life and not from matter. So Prabhupada was not interested in trying to convince the scientists, the intelligentsia, about things. He was more interested in the common person who's bewildered by the scientists, who take the scientists as authorities because they can do magic. Right?
Chiribu, chiribu.
Sorry. Right? But for understanding, for closing the picture of the God is not this academic scientists who have a knowledge from the God have new experiment. With this experiment, closer the knowledge, the intelligence, the knowledge, the intelligence of the nature with the God.
Some scientists are like that.
Yeah.
They have enough humility to understand that. Einstein expressed that in sometimes. Sometimes he did. You're not talking about him. I am.
Okay. Yeah, but for me, that is not close to
Okay.
the truth.
Who else? Steinberg?
No.
Steiner, not Steinberg. Steiner.
Steiner, yes, of course. And in a modern is from Serbia is Tomislav Terzin.
Oh yeah, Tesla.
No, Tomislav Terzin. Tesla is
He's from Serbia also.
yes.
Yeah.
Come from Croatia.
Well, he's the only Serb that I know.
From this part is many people who make the
Invention?
big yes big,
Oh yeah?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Who make big steps for human not knowledge but for best living.
Uh-huh.
Tesla have idea for best living for all people, free energy, and like that is have a idea for all humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's many like that. They are pushed to the side because
Yeah. For knowledge, because is not money in this knowledge, because
Yeah.
Have a higher level of this satanistic.
yeah, the demons, they want to use the science for control,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So like that.
It is.
But yeah, there are people like that. Again, we discussed this in chapter 14, right? Those situated in Sattva Gun, who are, and I gave you the example of the academics, who are, they're not in the rat race, what we call rat race, Everybody's struggling to get a living, they're running, trying to get money,
Okay.
rat race, we call it in America. So academic, they sometimes, we call it ivory tower. The academics are situated in an ivory tower. Huh? You have similar saying like this? Ivory is white. So there's, they're up on a pedestal. They're up, right, in a tower.
Like this.
Yeah. And they're thinking all the time, contemplating like this. Anyway, that's the idea. They're situated more in sattva. They become conditioned by sattva. They think, oh, everything is very nice. This is a problem. Okay. So, by my energy, they stay in orbit. Now, a lot of people want to call that energy gravity. The scientists have worked out a formula for gravitational pull. And
Which sloka?
number 8, number 9, number 13.
13?
13. 13.
Ah, okay. Ja ulazim u sve planete.
The scientists have worked out a formula for gravity. So they say that it's by gravity that everything stays in orbit. And so based on this formula, they speculate how much does the sun weigh and how much does the earth weigh and how much does all the planets, how much do they weigh? And based on this formula, they worked it all out, but it's all speculation.
Like a big clock.
Yeah, well, clocks work, but this is just complete.
And that is formula, like it's work with these formulas, but is not including the another invisible. What is this? The human body is physical, but is not only physical. And this new scientist is don't accept what is only accept physical, like a space clock is
Atheist.
everything. Is not only space clock is a being. Everything is alive.
Yeah, atheists, they don't understand this.
Maybe I don't have a proper...
They think many atheists, they think the body's just a machine.
That is
They don't understand different.
Western thinking about us. Is not we are not come from the God. We are come from the
Machine.
machine. Yeah.
Come from the monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. From monkey. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, continuing. I am the fire of digestion in all bodies of living entities. And that's significant because nobody knows how food gets digested. We just, that tastes good and that tastes good, and we put it all in, and poof, somehow or other, everything goes on. It's Krishna. Anything mystical and wonderful like that is Krishna. I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of food stuff. So it's the fire of digestion plus the air. How many kinds of air are there? 7 kinds of air, right?
Yeah.
I think Ayurveda says 7 different kinds of air.
Zrakovi kao prana i ima i Bhagavad-gita sam this apana Ayurvedic kako zrakova u tijelu ima.
I vatre, i zrakova.
Ne, zrakova baš.
Ne znam.
Ovi kaj te napuhnu, pa kaj umreš, pa kaj...
Dođu, otpuste.
Ja, za razne svrhe.
Da.
Now here next is a very famous and important verse. Let's see. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanavisto matasmitir gyanamaponam cha. Vedascha saveraham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. I am situated in the heart of all living beings, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By the Vedas I am to be known. I am the compiler of Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna is in the heart. We talked about that earlier in chapter 13, Super Soul. And again, Krishna is repeating this. And he's saying that from within the heart, he's reminding us. He's giving us intelligence. And he's also causing us to forget, if we want to forget. Let's say ignorance. You know this English word, ignorance, made up of ignore, right? So you can say like that. It's not that people are ignorant, maybe they just ignore the super soul. And if we continue to ignore the super soul all the time, we become demonic, actually. In my spiritual economics book, I explain this. There's several psychologists, they explain the progression of going from narcissism to psychopath, to become psychopath. And so it's benign narcissism, then what's the other one? Malignant narcissism, and then psychopath. What happens for the narcissist, he's doing something wrong, and his conscience is telling him that you shouldn't be doing this. But he doesn't want to see that he's bad, so he sweeps that under the carpet of the mind. He continually ignores that correction element that all of us feel when we do something wrong, and then eventually comes to the point he can't hear it at all. They have no conscience. And then whatever they do is right, and if anybody criticizes them, they must be wrong because I'm right. And how can they criticize me? If you criticize me, you're wrong. And you should be punished for criticizing me. They think like that. So, Krishna in the heart, very, very important. Where are we? There are 2 classes of beings, fallible and infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. We can transfer ourselves from the fallible category to the infallible category, which is the whole point of Bhagavad-gita. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and the Vedas as that Supreme Person. So here's Krishna's again declaring Himself to be the Supreme Lord. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything, and therefore engages himself in my devotional service, O son of Bharata. So, when we actually understand the Lord in all of His wonder and potency, the natural result of that is that we want to engage in His service. It's a very natural thing. It's just like in this material world, what we do is there's we have a natural inclination to love. And that natural inclination, let's say the object of that love is called ashraya, and that's God. But in the material world, we take material things to be the object of our love. And we misplace that love, and we become so absorbed. This is why people, they get so much excitement from the material energy. It's that same kind of energy that we would get in relationship to Krishna, but it's limited and it's temporary. And because that focus is misplaced, we continually become frustrated in our attempts to be happy. And so we go after some kind of wonderful, beautiful thing in this world, only to find later that it's not giving me the satisfaction that I want. What's the matter? There's something wrong. It was so attractive. It seemed like it should give me this happiness and satisfaction, but it's empty. And they can't understand it. It's because it's the wrong object. That love, that focus should be directed towards Krishna. And by doing that, then we do get the happiness and the satisfaction, fulfillment that we naturally want in that kind of relationship. And one last verse. This is the most confidential part of Vedic scripture, and it is closed by me. Whoever understands this becomes wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Becomes wise. What does that mean? Wisdom means how to come closer to Krishna. And his endeavors will know perfection. That means that we will come to our personal relationship with the Lord in total self-realization. Comment, question? Srila Prabhupada ki